The U.S. House of Representatives remains deadlocked after day one of voting to elect a speaker yielded no results. The last time this happened was almost 100 years ago. Day two of voting is set to get underway today. Meanwhile, news is coming saying that former U.S. President Donald Trump has jumped in to back Kevin McCarthy for House Speaker. In 3 back-to-back rounds of voting, Republican leader Kevin McCarthy failed to reach the 218 mark to be elected as Speaker. This despite Republicans now holding a majority in the House. Rather than celebrating their new control of the House, the Republican Party is hit by divisions and name-calling post-midterm elections. Apart from putting McCarthy's political career on the line, this could further deepen internal divisions. The failed votes marked the first time in 100 years that the majority party in the House has not elected a speaker on its first vote. Needing 218 votes in the full House, McCarthy got just 203 in 2 rounds, even less than Democrat Hakeem Jeffries. In the GOP-controlled chamber, 19 of his own party leaders voted against him. As night fell, tensions rose, and all other business came to a halt as well.
So we do not want to be here at this moment. We would prefer to have a unity of purpose, but we will not continue to allow the uniparty to run this town without a fight. There's very little difference between Nancy Pelosi and her California delegation mate that seeks the gavel, and we want to change because this town is broken.
Today, for the first time in 100 years, the House of Representatives failed to organize on opening day. It's a sad day for the House of Representatives as an institution. Sad day for democracy. It's a sad day for the American people. House Democrats are unified, ready, willing, and able to get to work on behalf of everyday Americans. We are prepared to try to find common ground with the other side of the aisle to solve problems on behalf of the American people, but we don't have a willing partner in House Republicans.
The California congressman needed a simple majority to be elected as Washington's top legislator who presides over House business and is second in line to the presidency. During each of 3 voice votes, every Democrat on the floor rallied unanimously around incoming Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. But a number of conservative Republicans split from the party to back other candidates, including longtime McCarthy ally and Republican Jim Jordan. Without a speaker, the House cannot fully form, which includes swearing in its own members, naming its committee chairman, engaging in floor proceedings, and launching the Republicans' proposed investigation against the Biden administration. The chaos and confusion in the House is also pointing to a difficult road ahead for the Republican Party that is in control of the House right now. Republicans won a narrow 222 to 212 majority in the House of Representatives in November's midterm elections. McCarthy or any other candidate for Speaker will need to unify a fractious caucus to win the gavel. Meanwhile, in the Senate, Democrats hold a slim majority. The Senate is not scheduled to come back until the 23rd of January for a vote. All right, for more on this, Elizabeth Braw is joining us. She's a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute from Washington, D.C. Elizabeth, thank you for coming back. You know, it's an extraordinary state of affairs in the U.S. House as a 4th vote for Speaker approaches. It's interesting that what we were seeing was some calling it, this is, a state of democracy. This is how democracy works. Others saying that this was an absolute embarrassment. Do you think that McCarthy will prevail? And do you think the Republican Party will ultimately overcome their divisions?
As you say, it's an extraordinary state of affairs, and it's something that we're not used to seeing, neither in the United States nor in any other liberal democracy. But what it reflects is this underlying division in the Republican Party between the traditional Republicans, as they used to be until Donald Trump came along, and then the Trumpian incarnation of the Republican Party. And that hasn't really been that obvious in the past 2 years. Simply because we have had a Democrat legislature. But what we're seeing now is that it's rather different if you have the majority to unite the factions within your party, because it actually matters. And it matters not just to America, but to the rest of the world, because what this Congress decides has enormous implications for countries ranging from India to Ukraine to Russia. And so it really is an extraordinary state of affairs. And we should remember that a lot of these divisions within the Republican Party have to do with America's role in the world. So, should America become more isolationist? Should it be more interventionist? These are the sort of issues that the Trumpian Republicans and the traditionalist Republicans disagree about.
Yeah, it's important to note that the Freedom Caucus, which these 19 Republicans that oppose McCarthy are part of, have numerous other members that do support McCarthy. And a lot of them, this Freedom Caucus, what's known as the populist wing, perhaps, of the Republican Party, they don't want as much funding going to Ukraine. As you mentioned, the international implications of how the new House is going to operate, so on and so forth. So they're, trying to vie for someone like Jim Jordan. But at the end of the day, how do you read all of this in the bigger picture on the state of the GOP moving forward? I mean, is this a preview of what we're going to see on how the GOP is going to operate in the House, at least?
It certainly is, and we should remember that even though Trump lost the previous election, he lingers on like no other election loser I've ever seen, and I think anybody else has ever seen. Usually, when a candidate loses an election, that person fades into some sort of obscurity, doesn't really play a role in politics anymore. They go into the private sector. They may take on a different political role, but they keep a much lower profile. Trump remains an extremely powerful force, not as powerful as it was maybe a couple of years ago, but still extremely powerful, and keeps influencing the Republican Party. And we should remember that he has been weighing in on the issue of whether McCarthy should be elected or not, elected Speaker of the House or not. So it's this division keeps on lingering. And when it comes to the isolationist wing or the Trumpian wing of the Republican Party, we should remember that so the isolationist versus interventionist wing, that these are divisions that have little to do with traditional ideology, because there are people on the far left of the Democratic Party that likewise say or argue, make the point that the United States should not be funding, giving as much money and weapons to Ukraine. So it's what we're seeing is in a micro sort of way, the dissolution, or the beginning of the dissolution of the party structure as it has been, or the party ideologies as they have been formed over the past few decades, because some Republicans are agreeing with far left Democrats on Ukraine and similar issues. So it will be fascinating to watch this Congress over the next couple of years to see how these new groups perhaps continue to align and emerge. But in the first instance, a new speaker has to be elected, and McCarthy doesn't look very good. On the other hand, there's no other candidate that's more viable than he is.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jim Jordan has said that he doesn't even want the job. And for now, Donald Trump is back in backing Kevin McCarthy. So we'll watch very closely today. Elizabeth Shaw, it's always a pleasure to speak to you from the American Enterprise Institute in Washington, D.C. Thank you for joining us.